Very tough. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't aware of the loss of staff as much.
That's been dramatic.
That 25% can be very huge. I'm not sure what to think of Mr. Martens. He's You're mentioning that you've gotten indications that he's being very open-minded, taking a very neutral stance.
Well, I don't know that for sure. I haven't spoken to him.
You said you got the indication.
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
But he has not taken on this role lightly. But I have read his remarks. I have read his speech, his recent speech about how he said something like, "What's the big hurry?"
Yeah, he's going to take his time.
He seems to be inclined. I think his remarks said he was interested in the results of the EPA study on drinking water.
Okay.
A lot of us know, though, that New York is ahead of the EPA.
Yes.
And New York is in a position to provide information to the EPA. And the EPA is trying to set guidelines for the whole country, and New York already has very stringent guidelines for clean drinking water that other states, frankly, should be emulating.
Sure.
So it's not clear how this is all going to shake out, to tell you the truth.
So, in effect, we still haven't seen, even though we've gotten the DEC Commissioner, we still haven't gotten a very clear indication of where Governor Cuomo wants to go with this, or whether any of the political pressures that were existing before are still there.
Right. What's going to happen is the Governor will put out his budget, and we'll see what happens to DEC, whether they sustain more budget cuts, more staff losses, and then we see how Martens responds in our budget hearings. He will come to our Environmental Conservation Committee, and I will be one of the questioners, and he will come and say, in order for us to do X, Y, Z, we're going to have additional staffing. And that'll give us some ideas as to whether or not, rather where his priorities are. And
get the transcripts of those questions and his answers.
He'll be live on TV.
I know.
But nonetheless,
transcripts are always hard to get sometimes.
Well, we can get those.
Yeah, I'd love to look at those transcripts.
Sure. Well, I'll have his testimony.
Okay.
And certainly the question and answer part will be easy to get.
Okay. Thank you for that. I would love to see it, because I'm looking forward to seeing that to really get a good feel. So these are a couple of the major things that we were speaking about last year. Not much has changed yet, well, even though a lot has changed, which is interesting.
We have a leader at the Capitol right now who is a very strong presence.
Yeah.
That's a big difference, let me tell you.
Well, I tell you that he's definitely made an impact, and looking at his most recent action, today there was an announcement that some 10, potentially 15,000, and this is not confirmed yet, it's not finalized, but the word going around is that somewhere between 10 to 15,000 state workers are going to be laid off as part of the process of reducing the budget, the deficit, I should say, which goes on top of his 5% cut of his pay, which is more symbolic than anything else, and the freeze that he's suggested that he plans to do for 1 year.
Right.
It creates a very interesting environment. And I'm not sure exactly what to think of it.
Well, we'll know soon.
Yeah. I know you're very optimistic. I'd like to be optimistic about it, so it's going to be interesting.
I'm optimistic that we have somebody who actually has a clue as to where he wants us to go. I mean, he's got a vision that he wants the state to thrive again. He has an idealistic view of the Empire State, and I appreciate that. And he seems to be trying very hard to wrap his head around the various assets that we have, and to confront some of the chronic, habitual behaviors that have gotten us into this mess in the first place. It's not all of our faults, obviously. I mean, the whole country has, in a way, turned its back on manufacturing. I mean, we could spend a lot of time talking about it. The consumer has gone for the cheap goods and how people have lost their jobs, but we haven't really picked up on some of the assets that we have and learned how to capitalize on it. But no, I'm optimistic that he's a strong leader and is going to put a package together that we're going to be able to debate. But the fact is, we're in the hole $10 billion, and we have tried, and we've done a pretty good job of cutting so many billions of dollars out of the budget up to this point. But we had federal stimulus money to help basically minimize the pain. Yeah. But we don't have that anymore. So here we go.
Well, this is the part that we've been wondering about.
Yeah.
And I don't believe the state bankruptcy rumor that's going on. That doesn't work. You have to change state constitutions as well as the U.S. Constitution. It's just not an effective, and it's not an effective answer.
I don't think we're looking at 10 or 15,000 state workers losing their jobs. However, I'm pretty certain that was a rumor that got floated out there. I can't tell you what it'll turn out to be, but he has put in place a fellow who I respect enormously. His name is Paul Francis, right at the governor's inner circle, who's in charge of government reinvention. And I think what you're going to wind up seeing is a government that was designed for a completely different century being reworked for a more modern age through consolidation and really streamlining services. So I'm expecting when he comes out with his budget, he's going to say, this is the old way we did things with all of these departments, but also all these commissions and special committees. All of this is a drain on resources. I bet you're going to see a lot of that stuff going away and saying what used to be done by these 14 areas are now going to be done by this group here. And all these buildings that we're renting to house all these people, that's going to all go away. So I'm really excited about that part, to see us come up with a more streamlined version of state government. This is the 21st century, for goodness sake.
Should be a
little more efficient. And we really are running an old operation. So I think the job losses, my guess, are going to come from that kind of streamlining, rather than frontline mental health workers. That's what I will be making sure, that we don't lose critical services, wind up creating more of a strain in another part of the system.
Okay. Well, one last question, which is, we always discuss a lot of things. We'll get more in depth as we go on throughout the year.
Okay.
But is there anything that you wanted to address right now, or as the year is starting off, we're just getting into the legislation? Is there something you want the viewers out there, the constituents, to know?
It's just that we really are trying, and there are a lot of people, in spite of the fact that there have been some real characters at the Capitol who I think have diminished the integrity of the entire group. There are a lot of us who really, really care and are going to try very hard to listen to what people have been concerned about. Taxes are too high, it's too expensive to live here, that their children are leaving because they can't find jobs, or they just don't want to be part of this environment. Many of us love this place and really want it to do well. And we want this governor to be successful. I'm going to try my best to help him with that.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And I look forward to keeping up with you throughout the year.
Sounds good.